Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the SIM Online Masterclass Series, Session 3. The topic for today is lessons from major projects. So just a gentle reminder, if you do have any questions along the way, please feel free to type your questions in the chat below. Our speakers and staff will assist to answer your questions. And there will also be a short briefing of our Warwick's master programs later on after the masterclass. So before we begin, let me introduce the speaker for today, Mr. Mike Newton. Mike is an experienced and enthusiastic program director in the field of operations management, project management, and logistics. He has worked extensively with the corporate clients to develop bespoke education solutions and now leads development of new programs in the area of operation management. Since 2012, he has been responsible for the operation of international professional programs in Malaysia, Beijing, and Bangalore. He's an active member of the Association for Project Management, sits on their Professional Standards and Knowledge Committee, and is an external examiner for the Master of Science courses in other institutions. So without further ado, let's welcome Mike. So over to you, Mike.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Welcome to this masterclass. Excellent to have the opportunity to speak to you. Look forward to interacting with you and give you the opportunity to ask questions on this material when we get to the end of the session. So please type questions into the chat line or talk to me as we go through the session if you need. Okay, so lessons from major projects: excellence, accident, or disaster. And I want to look at 4 particular case studies of past projects and draw out the learning from those projects in terms of what was excellent, what was influenced by probability, and what the significant failures were in terms of these programs. So major projects provide the assets and infrastructure that enable society to function. And so they're vital to the operation of modern society. And yet major projects around the world continue to miss their project objectives. And so we'll look at some of the reasons why major projects fail to meet their objectives. And we'll look at evidence from a number of recently completed infrastructure projects, different regions, different countries, understanding the common themes for success and the common issues and problems. So that's where we're going. Why mega projects and why mega projects in Singapore? Singapore is investing heavily in new mega projects. So Terminal 5 at Changi, Tuas Megaport, the Great Southern Waterfront, Jurong Lake District, development of Paya Lebar Air Base, and obviously the involvement of Singapore in China's Belt and Road Initiative that is evolving and developing the relationships with China on the old Silk Road coming west from China, and the operation of programs in countries across the world coming west from China. Indonesia investing in new strategic projects, an extensive investment in new strategic projects in Indonesia. Extensive investment in China. So observers say that new projects planned are aiming to cram 50 years of development work into the next 10 to 15 years in China. So extensive investment in Singapore, extensive investment in Indonesia, extensive investment in China. What an opportunity in terms of developing your capability and competence in project management and thinking about how you contribute to your organization and the wider community. How good is cost performance on projects? Here's a set of data from a range of published data, and you can see what performance looks like. So what you've got is a set of average overspends on the right hand side of this slide. Average overspends ranging from 3% on relatively simple construction projects through to 45% on rail projects. So 3% to 45% overspends. Remember, these average overspends are averages. So it doesn't mean that projects don't overspend by more than these numbers. These are the averages for the samples that we're looking at. If you're looking at a sample of projects, how many of your projects are going to overspend? And that's the second column for the right here. And that is suggesting that between 50% of your projects and up to 90% of your projects are going to overspend. So between 50 and 90% of your projects are going to overspend, and roughly they're going to overspend somewhere between 3% and 45%, maybe 25% as an average. So projects are failing to meet their time, cost and performance targets, and what we want to look at is why and what we can do about some of those issues. Okay, my screen's now locked up, so okay. I think, let's see if we can. Can you, yep, you've lost my slides now, yeah?
Yep.
Yep, let me see if I can get them back. Give me a second. My screen locked up for some reason. Share screen.
Yep. There you go. We'll see your slides again.
Excellent. We're back, are we?
Yes, but you are gone.
Okay. Give me a second. Let's see if we can reappear me. There's obviously there's a default in Zoom which switches off the video by the looks of things. There we go. So I'm hopefully I'm back. Now let's see if we can you still see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay. Let's try again. There we go.
Perfect.
Okay. Yep. That's working. Excellent. Apologies for the slight technical glitch, guys. So we've looked at some evidence in terms of cost performance on major projects, typically overspending by 3% to 45%. Why and what are the issues? And there's a researcher in the UK called Professor Bent Flyberg, and he's investigated this whole issue of why projects overspend against their original targets. He's an expert in transport infrastructure projects, and this is what he said about the whole process of failure to hit budget and failure to hit targets in transport projects. So what he says is cost estimates used in decision making for transport infrastructure are highly systematically and significantly misleading. Underestimation of costs at the time of decision to build is normal, and it appears to be part of the intentional power games played by project promoters aimed at getting projects started. So what he's saying is, our first estimate of the likely cost of a mega project is likely to be much too low. And one of the reasons that that estimate is much too low is because there is an intention to get projects approved, and the way you get projects approved is to keep the costs low, so that once they're approved, those costs, once the project is approved, the project's started, the project's moving forward, and then it's substantially unlikely to be cancelled. And once it's started, then it's generally possible to extend the budget, increase the budget, change the scope and definition of the project to get things moving. And so there's a deliberate intention right at the beginning of the project to misrepresent or be too optimistic about the process of how much a project is really going to cost you. Okay, so that establishes one of the major reasons why projects overspend. There are a number of other reasons why projects overspend, and we can talk about some of those maybe in another session. And certainly, I would talk about all of those reasons in my project management module and our degree program in project management. So, how do we measure project success? And there are a number of different approaches to measuring project success. We're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different measures of project success in the second column over. So project efficiency, how well did we deliver to time, cost, and performance? The business case for the project. How good was the business case? And we're probably measuring something like return on investment in terms of the business case. And then we're looking to see if the client was satisfied, the stakeholders were satisfied, and we delivered the benefits that were anticipated in terms of the project. And so those are typically different measures of how we think about project success. And when we go to look at the case studies, we'll look at the whole process of how we measure project success. How do we measure the success of the product or the service that the project has produced? And I've identified 3 different reasons here, 3 different approaches to measuring product success, thinking about the technical success, the economic success, or the social benefit of the project. And so technically, did the project work? Economically, did the project work? Socially, was the project of benefit to the wider society, the world, and the wider environment? And so mechanisms for thinking about project success. What are the factors that contribute to success? And down the right-hand side, I've got a picture of the different things we might measure in terms of project success. This research was done by a guy called Thomas Lechler. And what he did was he looked at 44 previous academic studies of critical success factors in project management. And he identified the things that researchers found drove project success. And the reverse is true. The absence of these things drove project failure. And so he's got 4 groups of factors. He's got a group of factors around the overall project environment in which the project is being conducted. He's got a group of factors around the capability and involvement of stakeholders. He's got a group of factors around how well designed our project management processes are. And he's got a group of factors around how good our project management tools are. And so if I'm talking about project management success, I'm talking about what does the environment look like? What do the competence and capability of and involvement of your stakeholders look like? What does your project management processes look like? And how good are your project management tools? And those are the things which historically have been proved to drive project success and project failure. There is a model of customer satisfaction which comes from a Japanese researcher called Kano, and Kano looks at the relationship between the presence or absence of success factors and their influence on whether customers are satisfied or dissatisfied. And so on this picture here, this is Kano's model of how he thinks about customer satisfaction and the presence or absence of these particular factors. So he talks about 3 different types of factor. He talks about performance factors. And performance factors are factors which, if they're absent, the customer will be dissatisfied. The more present they are, the more satisfied the customer will be. And if they're present in great number, then the customer will be really satisfied. So you've got a set of factors which have their absence drives failure and their presence drives success, and those are known as performance factors. You've then got a set of factors which are known as delighters, and these are factors that the customer doesn't know they want. So their absence doesn't cause dissatisfaction because they're not looking for these factors. But if they are present, the customer is delighted. And so this is a set of factors that influence success, but don't influence failure. Okay? And then you have a set of factors which are fundamentally basic requirements of the project. If they're not present, the customer is highly dissatisfied. But if they are present, they don't drive success. They're just fundamental satisfiers that have to be there. And so what we've got here is a model of factors that drive success, factors that drive failure and success, and factors that drive failure. And so we've got a model that thinks about how we go about analyzing critical success and critical failure factors and how those elements drive project success. And I've modified the Kano model is all about products and whether the customer is happy with the product that they're getting. But you can take that model and think about applying it to projects and project performance. And I've done that on the next slide. So what I'm saying is the delighters become project success factors. The basic needs become project failure factors. And the performance factors, if they're absent, drive failure, and if they're present, drive success. And so I want to use this framework for thinking about some case studies of projects and thinking about the factors, the critical success factors that drive success, the failure factors that influence failure but don't drive success, and the straightforward performance factors. So we'll take this model and we'll think about how it applies to a number of individual case studies. I want to look at 4 case studies from different environments. These are international case studies, international companies, delivery in different industrial sectors, delivery in different countries. And so I'll talk about the learning that comes from these 4 specific case studies. So the first case study is the link from Hong Kong into the bullet train network in China. So the high-speed train network in China, we've recently opened a new station in Kowloon in downtown Hong Kong, which is a high-speed underground rail link into Shenzhen and Guangzhou and the rest of China. So we'll talk about that project. We've got some data from the development of the MRT in Jakarta. We've got some data from the development of a new football stadium in the UK called Wembley, and we've got some data around a consulting services organization called Carillion and the performance of Carillion. So we'll look at those 4 case studies. First case study then, the high-speed underground rail link. Linking Kowloon to the rest of China, 26 kilometers of underground railway, and you can see some of the pictures from the construction site and the development of the project, and you can see a map that shows you the line of the rail linking into China. This project was about integrating with the mainland. It was a new organizational arrangement for how we went about building projects like this. The station in Kowloon was the largest excavated underground high-speed rail station in the world. so significant challenges. Built in a really densely populated urban area. So think about the whole process of managing the existing urban area whilst you're going through the construction of this project. Engagement and coordination of many contractors, complex coordination with government, particularly Beijing government and Hong Kong government. And there's some history here. Previous Hong Kong rail projects have performed really well to aggressive schedules. So the team really believed that they could pull this project back on track. Based on their performance, they'd always done it before, and so therefore they thought they could do it again. Average delays on rail projects in Hong Kong have been very small, delays of 1 to 3%, and cost overruns, minute cost overruns on these projects. So very good performance in the past. So that just paints a picture of the challenge that these guys took on. What happened? And I've got some analysis here in terms of time, cost and performance data across the project. The project was 3 years late. It overspent by 31%, and it overspent because there were significant flooding events in the tunnels whilst the project was being built in 2014, and those flooding events damaged the tunnel boring machines and led to a 3-year delay and a 31% overspend. So that's what the data tells us in terms of time, cost and performance delivery in terms of this project. There was a review of the project done by external experts, and they were brought in by the board of the contractor delivering this project. And this was the learning. When the experts looked at the problems and issues of the Xrl project, this is what they found. There wasn't enough schedule contingency, enough buffer built into major subcontracts. There was a new governance structure needed to ensure that the board had visibility of what was really happening in the project. There needed to be visible reporting of major milestones at board level. The project needed to measure the degree to which they were using their contingency, because in this project, the contingency funding disappeared relatively quickly, and they didn't realize that the cost profile was really bad. There is a mechanism called Schedule Recovery Index, and the experts suggested that this project should have used Schedule Recovery Index to quantify needed performance. The project team reported effectively and worked really hard to recover delays, but the escalation rules were not precise, so it wasn't absolutely clear what needed to go to board level and what didn't need to go to board level. And the experts suggested a tiered contingency fund so that the risk money wasn't visible to everybody in terms of the delivery of this project. So significant learning from a major review by independent experts. What can we learn from this process, and what does the performance of the project look like? Well, 2 elements of excellence. There was a huge belief in the team based on the experience that they'd had, that they could deliver to the plan, and that drove the ability to recover to a revised plan and to recover to a revised cost. The flooding was the significant accident that caused the problem. 2 elements in terms of the performance of this project overall. Once launched, and the project was launched on the 24th of September 2018, this rail line was open for business. Passenger numbers are less than predicted. And I talked earlier about Flyberg's thinking around optimism bias. What Flyberg says is that we deliberately underestimate the likely cost of a project in order to get it approved. But also, we deliberately overestimate the likely uses of the project in order to stress the business case. And so the passenger numbers have not been as anticipated. And the learning from the international review is that escalation rules were not clear, and the main board didn't know that there were significant problems until the project went very badly wrong in 2014. So there wasn't advance notice of the problems and issues. Okay, that's the learning from the Xrl project. Second project we're going to look at is the investment in Jakarta MRT Phase 1. Substantial investment driven by Indonesian and Jakarta government. This was the first MRT in Jakarta, again a densely populated urban area, a project solving substantial traffic gridlock problems. Major, well, 4 million people a day commuting in the greater Jakarta area, and commuting can take up to 2 hours. We are in an earthquake area, and there are areas of the city that have high risk of flooding. Land acquisition presents problems, and the target of the project was to reduce traffic congestion and reduce carbon emissions. So that paints the picture of the challenge that the project was trying to solve. What happened in terms of time, cost, and performance? The project was 3 years late, particularly around delays in procuring the land. Project overspent by 32%, and that was around additional costs because of the 3-year delay, but also additional costs from earthquake protection and flood defences, dealing with the overall environment in terms of this project. The project delivered brilliantly in terms of customer satisfaction and customer usage. 65,000 users per day in the first 3 months. So beat the targets in terms of usage targets for the MRT. Learning from the project. The project has been planned since the early 80s. Huge political and financial challenges delayed the project. So lots of learning there in terms of thinking about how we get projects through political and financial approval processes. MRT1 launched the way for Phase 2 and for the East-West line. So it was a trail-breaking project that created an environment in which further projects could be delivered more effectively. Changes to laws and regulations were needed, problems with land acquisition, Japanese extensively involved in funding and developing the project. Plans had to be changed due to earthquake protection and flooding issues. Flexible loan arrangements have allowed the project to continue, and parking and integration with buses need to be considered to speed up the quality of the solution. And so there was some silo thinking about not looking at the wider integration across Jakarta in terms of transport networks, but good learning from the project. Excellent accident or disaster. Passenger targets were exceeded in the first 3 months. The Japanese involvement ensured a strong foundation for the project, and the project is a trailblazer in terms of creating new frameworks, new governance, and new thinking in terms of MRT and transport infrastructure in Jakarta. Land acquisition issues delayed the execution of the project, and the MRT1 project was envisaged in the 1980s and launched in the 2010s, and so delayed substantially in terms of getting it through government. But now we've got a process in place that enables these things to be done more quickly. Okay. third project to look at is Wembley and the implementation of Wembley. You may be familiar with the idea of Wembley. Wembley is the home of UK, or England. Now, I can't say UK. Wembley is the home of England football, and was first built, I think, in 1927. This is a new Wembley Stadium, which was commissioned in 1996. Building started in 2002, and the project was finally opened in 2007. So that sort of sets out the overall timescale of Wembley. If you look at the picture, the wide screen view of Wembley, what you can see is all the way around the stadium. There are no pillars, there are no obscured views. The whole of the stadium is visible to everybody in every seat in the whole of the stadium. And that's because of this arch. And this arch supports the weight of the roof and means that pillars aren't required in the center of the stadium. So a novel design, taking the weight of the roof on this arch and giving amazing visibility in terms of the stadium. So that's Wembley. Let's have a look at the challenges. So 90,000 seats, the biggest stadium in the UK and the second largest in Europe. This arch had never been done before in the way it was suggested here. And so it was innovative, it was new thinking, new technology, and it was challenging. And some of the problems and delays from the project resulted from the arch. The archway is the world's longest unsupported roof structure. And then you can see some data around the amount of work that had to be done in terms of the project. The project was awarded on a fixed price contract to an international contractor, but involved a lot of unproven technology. And so there's a question mark for me over whether fixed price was the best solution in terms of the type of contract to be used for the delivery of this stadium. Project, as I said, was initiated in 1996. Went through a process of acquiring funding. The National Football League in the UK owns the stadium, and so it was a private project, and they had to go out and seek bank funding in order to create the project and launch the project. Unfortunately, they couldn't find the level of funding that they required. And so they then had to go to government, and there was a whole load of delays whilst they went to government and asked for government money in terms of funding the development of this new stadium. So after failing to secure commercial funding, the Football Association went looking for more public money, and they found more public money. The construction began in 2002. Remember, this project was initiated in 1996, so 6-year delay before we actually got to the point of knocking down the old stadium, and then the build process. The contract was awarded on a fixed price basis to an Australian contractor called Multiplex. And Multiplex was quoted on the Australian Stock Exchange. But this project was such a big project in terms of their portfolio that any change in the performance in this project had a significant impact on their share price in Australia. And so they were really loath to make public announcements about delays or issues with Wembley because of the impact on their share price. The plan was to launch the new stadium ready for the FA Cup final in May 2006 in the UK. Timescales were delayed by 9 months. Project was finally launched in March 2007, and Multiplex, the contractor, were in such a poor financial place as a result of this project that they were bought out by one of their competitors. And so not a good story of project success in terms of the contractor, but an absolutely excellent stadium for UK football. Here's the data around time, cost and performance. So 5-year delay in the project, substantial overspend in terms of the stadium build and substantial overspend in terms of the total cost. And most of the delay was due to issues with the weight carrying arch and the contractors who were due to build that archway. Learning. The Multiplex Bovis Bid. So Multiplex bid in collaboration with a UK company called Bovis, and then Multiplex went solo with a lower bid. So not only was this the lowest of the original bids, but Multiplex then launched their own individual bid, which was lower still. A fixed price contract, remember. Multiplex didn't appear to have a collaborative culture, so they weren't good at integrating with other suppliers and other contractors. The fixed price agreement meant that the negative publicity had a direct impact on the share price, and the completion was delayed for the 2006 FA Cup, and therefore the FA Cup had to be moved. Okay, significant learning from the project. Elements of excellence, accident or disaster. The final project is absolutely superb, and 2007, 2021, 14 years later, everybody is delighted with the final product. 90,000 seat stadium, absolutely brilliant. In the meantime, Multiplex got bought out by the competitor, and so not a good project as far as the contractor was concerned. Okay, going to skip the fourth project. It's a set of data around this company called Xrl, so I'll skip over Xrl and just draw things to a close. Conclusions from the debate and discussion around these 3 case studies. Conclusions from the Xrl project. Historically, the people working on Xrl had done a brilliant job, and they worked really hard and really capably to deliver this project on time. Just the risk was too much, and the reporting and escalation processes weren't really up to the challenges of a high-risk project. So that's learning from Xrl. Learning from Jakarta MRT. Past experience has created a strong basis for developing new projects in this area, and the project paved the way. Wembley, poor performance and publicity on a fixed price contract had a huge impact on the share price and ultimately led to the takeover. But the stadium is iconic. It's absolutely brilliant, but is one of the most expensive stadiums ever built. £975 million at the end of the day. Okay, conclusions and learning from the project. Why did these projects fail? Because their original estimate was underestimated in order to get them approved. There were poor escalation rules, political delays, poor project performance had an impact on the company share price, and so those were the sources of failure. And themes for success. Recommendations from the international board from the Xrl project talk about these 6 issues. Tiered contingency funds, enough schedule contingency, rigorous financial forecasting processes, creation of new financial vehicles for specific projects, and regular challenge of the solutions for project delivery against the original requirement. So the things that make projects successful. Questions and an opportunity for you guys to chip in and ask anything about the 3 projects that I've just discussed. Let me drop out of this presentation and put that down. And if there are any questions, that would be great. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Mike. That was really insightful, and I always love case studies. You know, it's always better to help you understand the concept. So I do have a question from somebody. He say, what do you think are the factors that did not work out well for the Singapore, Malaysia, KL, HSR?
That's a really interesting case. The Singapore, Malaysia high-speed rail line was in my set of projects 3 years ago, when I used to talk about the challenges and issues of new projects in Singapore and new projects in around the world. I used to talk about the potential new project in Malaysia. I haven't looked at the data of what went right or wrong. We do teach in Malaysia and we teach in Singapore. And it would be interesting to look at the factors that caused the project to go wrong. I think there are many issues around the political relationship between Malaysia and Singapore, and there were many issues around financial probity in Malaysia and financial probity in the Malaysian government at the time that this project was being executed. So I think the Malaysian government hasn't currently got a lot of money to spend, and as a result of that lack of funding, I think the project finally got cancelled.
Right.
Interesting question. Thank you very much. And I will go back and examine some of those issues from that project. I think it's fundamentally a very high level political question around financial probity in the project.
Right. Okay. I do have another question. So optimism bias seems to be a systematic cause of failure. Any recommendations for this?
So what Flyberg recommends is that what Flyberg says is project managers deliberately underestimate their cost of the projects in order to get them started. And they do that because they're building up the costs from the bottom and they're adding up the costs of individual elements of the project to get the total project cost. Okay, what Flyberg says is don't do that. What Flyberg says is find a database of similar projects of similar complexity and difficulty. Look at the characteristics of your project. Look at the characteristics of your database and then read across. So what you're doing is looking at real costs from completed projects of similar complexity. And he says that's the best place to start in terms of making sure your estimate is accurate for your new project.
Right.
Now, there is a challenge as to whether you want to make sure your prices are accurate for your new project, because otherwise the project might not get authorized. Which is this issue of why projects get deliberately underestimated in the first place. But so we know what the solution to the problem is. There has to be political will to implement that solution. And that's one of the biggest challenges, I think, in terms of this deliberate underestimation process.
Right. Okay, that's wonderful. So we have one more question, and after this, perhaps we will go down to the program briefing. And if you have any more questions, please keep it coming, and we will, discuss this at the end of the session. So this question is about: is there such a thing as a perfect time to execute huge projects? a perfect time for a huge project?
There's a really interesting question. I think we all know of projects that were significant failures because they were ahead of their time. They were too advanced. The technology wasn't mature enough. The market didn't expect the capability, and so the project failed. And we all know of projects that were launched 10 years too late. The market had moved on, the customer expectations had changed, and when the project was finally launched, it didn't meet the customer need. And so what I would say is we need to be really agile in capturing a good picture of the customer need and then delivering the project as fast and as efficiently as possible. So there's some good experience from Japan here, and the good experience says the Japanese don't launch a project until they have extensive consensus that this project is the right thing to do. So they spend extra time in the planning phase getting everybody lined up and agreed that the project is the right thing to do. And they're prepared to take longer than we are in a Western environment, or the Americans are, or other countries. The Japanese are prepared to take longer in the first phase of the project. But once they commit to a project, they deliver it really quickly. And so it's about agility in understanding the customer requirement and then speed in delivery. And hopefully, I mean, that's not a direct answer to your question about is there a right time for a specific project, but if you can take those principles and think about the application of those principles, I think they help you think about what the right timescales might be.
Great. Thank you, Mike. And would you like to share the screen for the...
Absolutely, for the program briefing?
Yes.
Okay, so let's see what we can do here.
It's always the case that when you are sharing screen and you're gone.
Yeah, okay. Yep, it's done that again. Let me stop sharing. Oh no, my video's come back now. So as soon as I press the share button, share screen button, it switches off my video. Share screen, switch on the video again. Let's see what we can do. Share window. Sorry, give me a second. Just need to get to the right place. Right. In fact, the PowerPoint is open already, so I can go there. Can you see that?
No, not really. I still see your file.
Okay, let me try again. Let me try again then. So close that. Let's go here. September 9th Warwick briefing slides. Come on, open. You see that?
No, I think when you share this window, this application only. You will have to share.
Okay, let me close that then. Try again. Sorry about this, guys. Share screen. Share.
Okay.
You see it now?
Yes. And we need
Excellent.
to see you too.
Well, yes, I would challenge why you need to see me, but let's see if we can switch the video on. There we go. So hopefully you should be able to see me as well, yeah?
Yep.
Good. And you can see the slides now?
Yes.
Phew, sorry about that again, guys. Okay. Okay, so a quick overview of our Warwick programs that we run at SIM and the whole process of delivering these programs at SIM. Just so a bit of background. We run 4 degree programs at SIM, MSCs in Engineering Business Management, Supply Chain and Logistics Management, and Program and Project Management. So those are 3 of the 4 degrees that we run. We run the Engineering Business Management degrees and the Supply Chain degrees in collaboration with an organization which is called SIMTech, Singapore Institute of Manufacturing Technology, and they're part of A-STAR, which is the research framework of the Singapore government. And the SIMTech guys supervise and support dissertation delivery in EBM and supply chain. Okay. Huge benefits from the relationship with SIMTech. These guys are professional researchers. They work closely with industry and they're used to supporting and delivering research projects. The MSc in Project and Program Management is delivered in collaboration with SIM, and we recruit separate industrial supervisors to support the delivery of this degree. And then we have a 4th degree, which is Cybersecurity and Management. The program is currently running in an old form, but is not recruiting students at the moment, and we're just about to relaunch it in 2022. So if you're interested in cybersecurity and management, then talk to SIM and talk to your contacts at SIM about what this program looks like and when it's going to start. Warwick is a top 10 university in the UK. It's ranked 62nd in the world rankings. It's seen as best practice in terms of how an organization should work with industry. So substantially good, high-ranking university in the world, 62nd, and in the UK, 8th, due to the latest league tables. Very good at working with industry. Academic programs are developed to deliver industrial needs. So we're not going to teach you theory or just theory. We're going to teach you the theory that is applicable and useful in the business that you're working in. Students on SIM programs typically get good jobs as a result of their degrees from WMG and from the SIM program. So you can see the sorts of organizations that EBM students have gone to work for, the sorts of organizations that supply chain students have gone to work for, and the sorts of organizations that PPM students have gone to work for. Here's some detail on program delivery. So if you're doing the master's course in 1 year, this is a typical pattern of delivery. 9 modules across 9 months and a dissertation running in parallel. If you're doing the program part-time, then you've got a little bit longer at the beginning of your modules to get your dissertation set up. But the principle is still the same. You're doing 9 modules over an 18-month program, and then you're doing a year-long dissertation in parallel. So two different designs of programs, one for full-time 1-year students and one for 2-year part-time, 2 to 3 year, 2 years or more part-time students. Programs delivered by university academics. We deliver in chunks. And so that allows you to take on board your learning and your thinking in bite-sized chunks. And that, I think, is valuable in a situation where you've got a full-time job, or you're trying to focus on the learning that runs through a one-year program. So we're delivering the thinking in chunks. 6 intakes a year for the part-time program, 2 intakes a year for the full-time program. The degree consists of 9 modules, 9 assignments, 1 for each module, and a 20,000-word dissertation. And so that's what you're contributing to and you're delivering in terms of the Warwick programs. There's some detail here around the modules that you might take and your choices of modules. So this is a list of the sort of modules you might be thinking about taking. So whole load of different modules: organization, people and performance, leading change, financial analysis and control systems. I won't read out the whole list, but if you look at that list, it gives you a flavor of the sort of modules that we're offering you and the sort of learning we're offering you in terms of the contribution of each of these degrees. On each program, there are some core modules which you have to pass. There are some elective modules which you have to do, so they're core elective modules, and then there are some choices. And the idea is that you've got 2 core modules, 4 core elective modules, so 6 predefined modules, and then you've got an option to choose 3 out of a number of different modules in terms of your electives towards the end of your program. Teaching of Warwick modules is fairly intense. You're studying over a 5-day period or a 9-day period. And so, as I said, we're teaching in blocks. Because of that, Warwick people are very good at designing appropriate mixes of teaching styles. So interactive lectures, teamwork, case studies, case histories, industrial presenters, simulation exercises, all sorts of different approaches to learning built into a 40-hour module. So we're not just going to ask you to read a textbook and sit there and listen to a lecture. Said this, we're either delivering over a 5-day period or we're delivering over a 8-day period. We're normally teaching to groups of 25 to 30 students, and then you have an assignment to do after each module, which allows you to apply the learning from the module. Here's a typical picture of delivery timetables for the 5-day module and for the 8-day module. Fee levels, program fees, typically $35,000 for the MSCs and typically 10,000, just a bit more than 10,000 for the PGAs. PGA is 3 modules, MSc is 9 modules and a dissertation. If you're thinking about when does the money disappear from your bank, this slide just helps you think about the payment schedule. Employers, I've already said WMG works really closely with industry and has got a really good reputation for working closely with industry and designing programs that are of real industrial benefit. So how do employers benefit? Well, they get they get their people trained in stuff that's relevant and directly applicable to business. And the idea is that the concepts and principles that you're taught allow you to contribute from day one in terms of applying the thinking in your organization. If you're employed, you've got the option to study this program part-time, and that allows you to take the learning that you make in the week and apply it the following week or the following day back in the business. So immediacy of impact and immediacy of application is really useful as far as employers are concerned. How and why are we so good at what we do? Well, we combine academic excellence with industrial experience. We meet the needs of industry. We take on board industrial views in terms of creating the teaching material. Many of the module tutors have worked in industry before they've become academics. And many of the tutors teach in multiple overseas locations. So, for instance, I tend to teach in Shanghai, Beijing, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, Cyprus, Turkey, Pakistan. And so I'm bringing to the picture experience from all of those different environments when I'm teaching you guys. So global experience. And the assignments generally take the theory from the module and ask you to apply it practically on the ground in your own company or in your own environment. So you're not just writing about theoretical concepts, you're doing something different as a result of this program, and you're learning as a result of that process. Modules typically involve guest speakers, so we've got very good relationships with many companies in Singapore. These are some pictures from Alec Chia delivering on a supply chain management module in Singapore. Lots of different types of activity, and you can see this is an element of the innovation module being delivered by Adrian Cole in Singapore. This was a site visit as part of the either the storage and warehousing or the transport techniques module, TTM, or yeah. So this is a guy called Gwyn Richards involved in a company visit to LF Logistics in Singapore. Okay. What does your commitment look like to the program? We've talked about 9 modules. Each module takes 40 hours to deliver, and each assignment takes 60 hours to do. So that's about 100 hours per module. The modules represent 900 hours worth of work. The dissertation represents 900 hours worth of work. So the whole program represents 1,800 hours worth of work. And so don't come in thinking that this is going to be an easy ride or a simple. It's going to be quite hard work, and there's going to be a lot of work to do over a 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year period. PGA involves 3 modules. So a PGA is a nice starting point if you're not sure that you can commit to the master's program, but you think you could get started by just doing 3 modules. Then the PGA gives you an opportunity to get started and then think about whether you want to transfer that learning and that credit to the master's program. You get a degree certificate from Warwick University. It's an identical degree certificate from any of our individual overseas centres, and so you're getting the same degree as lots of other people are getting in terms of their process wherever they're studying. Entry requirements: you need a second-class honours degree or an ordinary degree with 2 years of experience, or a diploma with 5 years of experience. But we are keen to develop existing people in organisations, and we will look at your experience if you haven't got some of these relevant qualifications above. Okay, so those are the academic qualifications required. English, you need to be able to speak English at an IELTS 6.5 level, and you need to demonstrate that either by taking an IELTS test or by studying in Singapore in an English-speaking institution within the last 2 years. Okay. Admissions procedure: complete the online application form, bring your documents to SIM for verification. Singapore will then refer the data to Warwick, and we will make the decision on the individual offers. We'll tell Singapore the decisions that have been made, and then you can then accept those offers in terms of the degree acceptance at both SIM and at Warwick. You need to provide your educational certificates. You need to provide a passport or an NRIC or a FIN in terms of international applications. You need to supply a passport size photo and a statement of purpose, CV, and 2 references, and you need to demonstrate your English capability. Here's a picture of the last but one graduation ceremony. This was the last real graduation ceremony we ran in Hong Kong, in Singapore, sorry. We've just run a new virtual ceremony in the last week or so, and that went really well for 53 candidates as well. So here's a picture of the SIM and UK academics and a set of students graduating in what does it say below? It says 54% of graduates attained distinction or merit in 2021. So more than half getting distinction or merit in terms of the delivery of the program. Okay, let me these are some of the jobs that graduates from the program have taken on, and so you can see their history, their background, and their role as a result of this program. Again, some data around EBM graduates and the places that they've worked and the positions that they've taken. Some data around supply chain candidates and the positions that they've taken. Some data around PPM candidates and the positions that they've taken. Many different countries represented, and you can see the range of different countries who've been involved in Warwick programs at SIM. Couple of testimonials from experienced former students. So Mark Chan and Iranius Francis Stamaria giving us their experience and their learning from their programs. I taught both of these guys. I've worked with them in the past. They have extensive experience and hugely benefited from these programs. More recent testimonials, again, I've taught these 2 guys, Tripti and Sebastian, and huge benefit from the programs and huge benefits in their future careers. Opportunities to look for jobs and for SIM to support you in terms of getting jobs. And the data around the application closing dates and the intakes. Okay, any questions, feel free to ask them now, contact us, talk to us about anything that I've said, and I will drop out of that presentation and come back to you and stop sharing my screen. There we go. So you should be able to see me, and you should be able to ask me any questions. If you want to relay any questions, that would be great.
Yep. So if you have any questions, please type it out to me, and I will address them to Mike. So Mike, would you just be able to share a little bit more about the dissertation that the students needs to write? You know, what kind of assistance is the school providing or guidance?
Okay. Either you're doing your degree full-time, in which case you're being supervised by an SIA, a SimTech supervisor, probably. SimTech supervisors for EBM and supply chain. And they are experienced in certain subject areas, and they will give you guidance on the thinking and the ideas you need to build into your dissertation. So you can look at the experience of the supervisors, you can look at their thinking and their ideas, and you can then talk to the supervisors about your proposal and creating a proposal for your project. If you're a 2 to 3 year part-time student, your company or your organization probably has ideas about what they would like you to do. Your boss probably has a specific project in mind for you. And so talking to your company and your organization, if they know that you're studying for a master's, if they don't know you're studying for a master's and you don't want them to know, then you've got the same option as the full-time students in terms of talking to SIM supervisors about the likely subject areas for the projects. If you're a part-time student, then you've got a vehicle for applying your project learning, and you can talk to your organization. Once you've got an idea from your organization, you can then take that to the relevant SIM supervisor and say, are you prepared to support this idea and this project? Okay. Projects generally are industrially relevant. They help your company or your organization improve their financial performance or their employee satisfaction or their customer satisfaction. So they have an impact in terms of real business operations in the company you're working for. And that's the target and the idea of Warwick programs.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Mike. Is there any other questions that you have, whether it's regarding to the program or the topic that Mike has just shared earlier on? Probably there isn't much questions now. In any case, if you have further questions about the program or about the topic, you can always write to us at study@sim.edu.sg, and we'll convey the questions to Mike and we'll try to resolve that for you. And in any case, thank you so much, Mike, for doing this session with us. And thank you so much, all of you, for tuning in on a Thursday evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Much appreciate your involvement. I hope to meet you. I tend to teach my module in March at SIM, so and I'm hoping to come to Singapore physically in March if the travel regulations allow me to. So great to have an opportunity to talk to you now, and I look forward to the possibility of meeting you face to face in March if the travel regulations allow. So take care, guys. Nice to meet you, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks, everyone, and I will proceed to close this room.